Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Fan.
Here is Ben Goessling at Ben Goessling via Twitter. Ben's inclusion 9 to noon, now provided by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Welcome to the Covenant, friends. Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. And learn more at standardheating.com. Right now they have a $1,500 off furnace/AC combo and a bevy of deals at the website. It is standardheating.com. Little B found you a furnace and AC hook, Benjamin. Pretty cool, huh?
Very, very nice. It's very seasonal too. I suppose people are trying to get heating ready to go with all the cold weather. So yeah, it worked out nicely. Glad to have them aboard.
Let's play off that. Let's play off heating and cooling. So let's do a Josh Dobbs heat check. The Saints are better and more organized than the Atlanta Falcons.
Right.
So are you expecting some form of cooling front Sunday with Dobbs?
You know, it's so hard to know because what we saw on Sunday was just so out of the box that, what does it set precedent for? Yes, the Saints are better. I think there will be a little bit of cooling in that regard. However, we have not seen Josh Dobbs actually practice or prepare for a game with this team. So there was, I think, things to build on, especially given his athleticism and what he brings as a runner. I think there were things where if you watch it back, it's like, okay, he's got to throw there if he's able to read through it and understands kind of what he's looking for. But given the situation on Sunday, I understand why he kind of just played backyard football or where he had to play backyard football. I think with a week of it, especially being at home, there is reason to think they can play and compete with the Saints. It's a tougher challenge defensively, I think, but I also expect that a week of practice, a week of time to actually learn the offense, to get with coaches, could help him quite a bit heading into this one.
Okay, now what did with Dobbs just riding your instincts?
Yeah,
and now coming up for breath and having some time to look at some plays and just look at the who, what, where, when, and why, specifically the where he has been, because I just said in passing, it's Sunday had some immortality type game to it.
Yeah.
Or folklore-ish type game.
Very mythic, yes.
Right, like the Indianapolis comeback last year.
Buffalo, that kind of.
The Bills game last year, this one. They're kind of in the same basket.
Right.
But I'm not just willing to shun or just push to the side and look at certain things from a strictly happenstance nature. And here's why. He plays for the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin's the head coach, defensive minded.
Yep.
Plays for the Titans, Vrabel's the head coach, defensive minded. Arizona, Jonathan Gannon, defensive minded.
Right.
Well, I'm not disrespecting the offensive staffs or the coordinators. However, it's easy to get lost on a practice squad. When you're locked into too much money with Tannehill.
Yeah.
You like Clayton Tune, but not enough to use him full-time over Dobbs, and that's where a potential star begins to ascend. That's where his star starts to ascend, and in Pittsburgh, they drafted Pickett.
Right.
So he was in a weird spot for defensive-minded head coaches. Yeah. As I'm going to say with O'Connell today, when we sit down for X's and O's, and it may be God's cartoon character taking it a step too far, there's untapped talent here. There is untapped ability and utilization here. Speaking from a circumstantial standpoint.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you saw on Sunday too is this quarterback staff from Grant Udinski to Chris O'Hara to Wes Phillips up to Kevin O'Connell is as good of a kind of tree of quarterback development as we've seen around the Vikings in a really long time. And that obviously starts with a guy in Kevin O'Connell that played at this position in the league. But they have a group that is really, really good at molding quarterbacks. I think we saw it. Jaron Hall, I thought, looked really good in the drive that he had before he gets hurt. We've seen them kind of take Kirk to a different level. I think the ability of this group to make something out of what they have is higher than what we've seen. Certainly it's probably to be expected when you've had defensive head coaches in the two previous head coaches to Kevin O'Connell and Mike Zimmer and Leslie Frazier. So there's a little bit of that I think goes into it as well. But when you pair Dobbs with some of the things that we saw, he certainly can move. He certainly can, I think, make a lot of the throws. Certainly is big enough to play the position. And as we heard and have heard and will probably continue to hear, there's no doubt about his intelligence. I mean, the guy is like the one player in the NFL that can say, this isn't rocket science, and actually know what he's talking about. Because I know what rocket science is.
Always.
People usually use that phrase, and it's like,
yeah.
Okay, well, what do you know about it? This guy actually does.
Well, they need to move on to this is not brain surgery.
Yeah, I suppose they do with him because that would be the one that he wouldn't be able to say definitively. But I think when you pair these things together, and especially if you get Justin Jefferson back at some point, there's reason to think it can work. And I'm curious to see if he'll hang on to the job and all of those things because there's other quarterbacks in the mix. Mm-hmm. But I think overall they're in a better spot to just take what they have and make something of it at the quarterback position than they've been for a long time.
Right. And I'm saying due to circumstance, he's been in situations where he's emergency third guy with no chance to ascend to the one.
Yep.
Well, he's ascended to the one here due to circumstance.
Yep.
He's 6'3". And another thing that just should not be just shrugged off and pushed to the side is the ability to get out of trouble because of your strength, because of the leg strength and the arm strength. I mean, I saw part of one practice last week, but didn't look closely at Dobbs and, watched him the entire pregame. I mean, he's cut. I mean, he's a thick, strong looking man. Unlike Jaron, he's 6'3". And, let's chat more about that and maybe what's real with Josh Dobbs around the corner. But first, here's that cash thing.
The Fan, along with two men in a junk truck, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. All you got to do, go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword check. KFAN.com, the key.
KFAN.
Yeah, but. Yeah, but
I'm your boogie man. That's what I am.
I mean, pick your poison with that defense. I mean, pick your poison with Josh Dobbs. I'm watching some Vikings-Falcons film with Ben Goessling, the Star Tribune in studio. And Ben's inclusion is courtesy of StandardHeating.com. That's Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Welcome to the Covenant, indeed, friends. And we watched a play where Dobbs and Nordo saw this from, I believe the name is Luke Braun via Twitter, who does good film work. And so Ben and I watched that, and Dobbs on the 18-yard touchdown run. TJ Hawkinson killed his guy.
Yep.
There was a good pocket. Dobbs looked to be looking at him, but didn't throw it.
Yep.
So we're guessing here. We're guessing here with guessing. Why do you think he didn't throw that and he decided to run? It was a beautiful run, but why didn't he throw it?
Well, I wonder how much of it is just not trusting it yet, not trusting what he's seeing because he hasn't practiced it, and there's no timing with any of these guys yet. Eventually, you have to get to a point where you throw that. Yeah. And Kevin O'Connell, I asked him about this yesterday. He said, you don't want to take the running stuff out of him because that's a weapon that he has, but you also don't want to put him in a position where he could get hurt, especially given the depth of quarterback. And you need to just get the ball to your playmakers in time. And I'm sure he knows that. I'm very curious to see what that will look like. If we're seeing those same things next week where it's, hey, this is open, but he's taking off and running it, then it's a little more like, okay, you need to probably refine some of those things. But I would chalk some of this up early on to a guy that just is getting thrown in there in the whole situation. I mean, even hearing O'Connell talk about it yesterday too, in the degree of I've got 7 seconds to tell him something, and do I overcoach him here or not? I mean, it's like it's more the more details you get of how they pulled all of this off, the more incredible it is to me that they did it. I mean, this is not just for anybody that's watching on Sunday. It's not backyard football, two-hand touch. They were basically, I used this line in my story, it reminded me of one of those movies. I mean, Tom Cruise has made a half dozen of these things where it's, I don't know how to, I mean, this was like the end of the new Top Gun. I've got to fly this old plane that we're not sure if it works, and I'm with this guy that's younger than this plane is, and we have to find the manual and figure out how to get it out of here, and people are shooting at us.
Yeah.
There was an element of that with this thing, right down to like O'Connell being the guy in his headset in the Mission Impossible movies. Hey, I'm hacking into this door and opening it up for you. Hey, you're going to get this on this play. I mean, it's incredible to me that they pulled this off, and the more details you hear of it, the more it's just like, you can't really use it as a precedent for what it's going to look like in a normal week, just because there was so much of it that was just a escape act in a lot of ways.
O'Connell with the vulnerability and the let's say thy not I approach to coaching. In that press conference yesterday, I was really, really impressed when he said he rattled off the things you just said about not being in the headset too much, not muddling his mind. But then he also was like, and I had to make sure I'm not messing up the huddle.
Yes.
Yeah. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I've never heard because there are so many coaches who would be like, I don't give a bleep that I'm messing up the huddle.
They need to hear from me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And he was like, no. I need to make sure he is as comfortable as possible. You know where I'm going here with this.
For sure. I mean, he said, I asked him about the headset stuff, and he said, I've got one eye on the play clock and then one eye on the huddle to make sure that I'm not interrupting, that I can use my time effectively. Even all of the, it's good we're in no huddle because I have more time to talk to you stuff. You don't get any, you're not going to have this on TV. There's no way to understand it unless people tell you about it and say, here's what's going on while they're showing replays and all this different stuff on the broadcast. But there's so much that went into this and so much care that had to be taken to get to a point where all of it came together that it's pretty incredible. I mean, we've both been around this long enough that the longer you're around it, the more you learn about how much you don't know and how much
big time
detail there is that goes into everything they do. And this one where, even he's talking about, I need substitutions to be on it. I need assistant coaches to have packages ready to go so that we have more time to get guys in, or less time. We can get guys in quicker.
Yeah.
So I have more time to talk and we get in and out of the huddle faster. That level of detail is what it took. And they pulled it off.
In the Buffalo game, I guess we can say, hey, never seen a quarterback have the ball stripped from him at the goal line to lead to a touchdown that basically gave them the lead, but it looked like it won the game, and then they marched down the field and they won it in overtime.
And then you get touted by LeBron.
Stop that. so that's, that moments like that probably have been seen.
Right.
Indianapolis, nobody's ever seen a comeback like that because it was first in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
And with Dobbs, really, I've never seen, I don't think you have either, at least with the Vikings.
Yeah.
On the sideline during the game with the offensive line going over the ready. Yeah. My 126 is 126. Yeah. So don't jump, Ed. And then going through because
they didn't.
I shared this yesterday with the audience that when I was watching Jaron Hall in the pregame, it's about when you come into the Vox box to join Musk.
Yep.
Right around that time, I got my binoculars on the adversary to memorize numbers, but then they leave, so then I swing over to the Vikings. And there were, when they were running the first offense against the first defense, maybe you saw this too, there were no fewer than 3 false starts.
Yeah.
Now, they're obviously not false starts because it's practice.
Right.
But I can't say that I've ever seen an offense, and then Hawkinson jumps, my bad, gets back. Then they do it. And then they spread out and do a different, and then Addison or somebody or an offensive lineman jumps.
Yeah.
So with Hall, just getting the cadence down was hard. And then now new guy rolls in and they work on it during the game on the sideline. Never seen it.
No, I haven't either. It was one of those things that you just aren't in that spot because you do everything you can to not be in that spot. When you ask him about it after the game, I think I asked him what was on the to-do list when Jaron goes out and you're going in. And I'm thinking I got to get with receivers and go through, just getting warm up, getting loose. And he said, no, I have to practice the cadence. It's like, we don't even know how to start the car yet. I mean, it was that level of, and I think Reggie Wilson from Carol 11 posted the video of it that has kind of made the rounds here. But yes, it was that kind of thing of.
Damn, so Reggie watched the game from the field.
I think so. He must have been down there for something or other. But
wow. That's
yeah,
cool.
All of that video, that's what they're doing there. And Brian O'Neill after the game said, I hadn't taken a snap with him all week. Garrett Bradbury's sitting right next to him in the locker room, and Garrett's laughing and said, you didn't take a snap with him. Yeah. You're not even the one that has to snap the ball to him.
Right.
So, yeah, it was like as fly-by-night as anything you'll see in the NFL. And I thought of this yesterday. It's like we've seen there are two situations I can think of in my 12 years on the beat that are even remotely comparable to this, where 2013, Josh Freeman, obviously that's a disaster. That was, I think, 16 days after he was signed that he started. 2016, Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt. They trade for Sam Bradford. He had like 8 days before the opener. Yeah. They decided, we're not going to mess with it. We're going to put Sean Hill in and give Sam Bradford, who'd been in the league for like 7 years, number one pick in the draft, more time to learn the offense. And again, maybe that's defensive head coach thinking about it differently. But this was Tuesday to Sunday, guy who had not practiced and didn't get any of the work in practice because you're trying to get a rookie quarterback ready to go.
Right.
So,
well, how about this?
It's
the college
crazy.
stadium when it was TCF Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's not the Vikings.
Yep.
But it was the Falcons. Mike Tice was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And they come into the game down one or two offensive linemen. They lose one or two in the game.
Yeah.
And he has tight end Levine Toilolo
Yes.
playing left tackle
Against Everson Griffin.
Basically the entire fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, just the quirky nuance of things like that.
Yeah.
It's akin to kind of what we saw at Georgia Dome. Now, we mentioned T.J. Hawkinson. How about TJ of late? I mean, he just, I don't know if you know, the drops or if he's one of those players that pays attention to social media or like stuff like that. And, you know, people teasing him and chiding him and, you know, of course, tying it to the money.
Yeah.
Something got under his skin. He's playing with his hair on fire.
Yeah.
He's breaking tackles. He's dragging players like Mark Bavaro. And on the Josh Dobbs 18-yard touchdown run we just watched, well, I mean, Hawkinson broke off a hard route. I mean, he just broke it off hard to the right, and there was a touchdown to be had there, but Dobbs chose not to take it. So Hawkinson's on fire right now.
Yeah, he's been, and they've needed it with Justin Jefferson out. Maybe there's a little bit of that, too, saying, I have to go be the guy now. But the catch and run, the 29-yarder on Sunday, I mean, those types of plays were not things we were seeing before.
Right.
The drops have mostly receded. You know, mostly. There's still been a couple of those. But
he won the Green Bay game.
Yep.
With Jaron Hall, middle of the field.
Yep. Yeah. The third down conversion there. Yep. Yes, for sure. And I think they've needed it. I think whether it's him seeing it on social media or maybe coaches saying, hey, we need you to step up here. Hard to say. But it has come at the right time for them and certainly has been a major difference from what we saw the first 3 weeks of the season.
And finally on Josh, the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
I mean, until you watch it back, which we just did, you don't realize truly how amazing Dobbs was on that play.
Yeah, the throw.
Well, they went play action,
Yeah.
and for the what feels like the third consecutive game, 12th consecutive quarter, nobody's biting on play action until it's kind of like, well, you know, which could be different now with a quarterback who can run, but it's kind of like you know, we know you're not interested in running.
Right.
And until you are interested in running, we have coached our players up to not bite. And they're doing a good job at it.
Yeah.
So on that 2-point conversion, he goes play action. And, of course, nobody bites. And then he had a swivel. I mean, that's I'll just end it right there.
Yeah.
He had a swivel, and you can see him going through his reads, feels the pressure of Bud Dupree. Now, it took Bud an hour to get around Quessenberry.
Yeah.
But Dobbs is holding it, waiting for somebody to break open. And he feels that pressure, saunters, doesn't sprint, doesn't walk. It's not a dash, kind of sauntered out to the right.
Right.
Saw Jackson, but he saw a part of the end zone where if I throw it here, and I throw it in a good spot, and Jackson's an athlete, because I have no idea who Tristan Jackson is.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Josh Dobbs might. He was probably throwing to him all week on the scout team.
Right.
You know, if Tristan is an athlete and I throw it to this spot, we got that too. And that's exactly how it worked. And he had a swivel. I mean, that was just such a little small nuance related play in that game.
Yeah, and you saw a lot with the footwork that you can build on. I think the drops, the ability to improvise, the ability to move around, the fact that he keeps his eyes downfield on that, where it's, let me see if something opens up. I'm not going to try to run for it. I'm going to see if I can find a place to go with this. There is certainly stuff that I think they can incorporate into the offense, and when he gets more time, there's stuff to build on there, I think, for sure.
We heard it yesterday at the end of the press conference. I believe it was Maxie who asked him about Justin Jefferson, who's set to come back off of the IR, or he's at least eligible to this week. And the way PA framed it up, I think it's the way when you can kind of read through or read the tea leaves where KOC is very open and honest about situations for the most part. But he was very, I'd say, tempered and kind of a bit holding back in terms of
a little cryptic,
setting expectations for JJ into this weekend. How did you read it?
Yeah, I did not come out of that thinking that we are 100% going to see Justin Jefferson this weekend. I think either...
In fact, it felt 50-50.
Yeah, I think 50-50 probably at best. If I was going to bet, I would bet that he's not going to play simply because of the way they talked about it. And that could be a number of things. That could be... They may be hearing from his camp of, we don't want him to go out there until we are 1,000% sure he's ready. It could be them saying, we still need to kind of put our best foot forward with him in terms of showing, and you hate to make it about the money stuff, but this is a factor here, I think, in terms of you need to show them you are going to do right by him in the long term. I'm sure that is in the back of their minds.
All right.
And just trying to have him healthy.
If that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay, and it might be. Well, then you better not be talking out of both sides of your mouth with Darisaw.
Sure.
Okay, because if you're pissed off, Darisaw went to questionable on Saturday, worked out, and then, now it comes down to the individual saying, I can't go.
Yep.
So you can't, I mean, and okay, it's JJ. I get it. It's a skill guy.
Right.
But you know what? Left tackles are pretty freaking important.
Yeah,
too.
They are.
So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth if indeed that is happening.
Sure.
About one guy feeling this way about his groin and another guy with his hammer.
Yeah, that's true. If you're going to have a standard, you have to have it universally, and certainly different players get different things, and Justin Jefferson's going to get that.
They're both guideline players.
Yes, I agree.
I think Darisaw has become a guidelines, not rules player.
I would agree with that. I think the way he has played that position, number one, it's a premium position. Number two, he's as good as anybody in the league. So, yes, you do have a little more of that with them, with those types of players. And I'm sure with Jefferson, too, the specific injury when you're sprinting downfield, I mean, hamstrings can come back and rear their ugly heads again. So there may be a little bit of that to it, too.
And JJ is not a high-end run-blocking receiver.
No.
Well, you now have a quarterback who wants to run for 60 to 100.
Yeah.
Got to think about that, too, a little bit.
Yeah, you have to be probably extended a little bit more in some of those plays than you would otherwise.
Yeah.
Is there any element moving forward? Because Jaron Hall plays, and he starts the game, and it's a catch and run to Johnny Mundt. Then it's a long reception to Alexander Madison.
Yeah.
Do you find any element to what PA mentioned, throwing and playing with guys in practice and the connection and chemistry there, where Jordan Addison, and on the final drive, by the way, he was absolutely the go-to guy, and he found that catch on the sideline with the toe tapping, and it was amazing. But the chemistry of when you're in this backup slog and you're dealing with trying to find guys that work and slotting them in, and KJ Osborne leaving the game with a concussion certainly impacts things, and Tristan Jackson was set to come in. But is there any element to that chemistry in practice leading to some guys that normally you're not talking about them in any frontline manner, that they're getting opportunities in the game because of those connections in practice?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think you saw it in some of those plays at the end of the game where you have to be able to trust somebody. You have to be seeing things the same way. You have to have the timing right. All of that stuff comes into it. And there's just no time to develop the level of trust that you have to have in a game. I mean, you may get it right by happenstance, but yes, I certainly think all of that work they do in practice is where that stuff gets built. And you see it a lot when they're at the end of the practice days where whoever the backup is, whoever probably the third stringer is, and in a lot of cases this week it was Dobbs as the backup, is out there for extra work with Grant Udinski saying, let me get all of the throws I didn't get in practice. And some of that, I think, is typically with a receiver. You're working through timing all of those different things. And this offense certainly relies on a lot of that. So, yeah, I think if you can build those things to the degree that they're at least serviceable the rest of the year, it's not going to be the same as it is with Cousins and a guy that gets all the reps all year round. But the more you can get to a point where you have that foundational level of trust, I think that helps everybody.
Okay, now the Vox box was close to the press box, so we were deep in the corner,
right?
Kind of like the Arizona Cardinal Stadium.
Yep.
Tell me I'm not the only one in the world who thought that was KJ Osborne who caught that deep pass, and it was Madison. I mean, I said,
yeah.
I mean, you see a guy, they're about the same size. I see dreads,
and he's split wide,
and it's down the field.
Yep.
I was like, damn. Then I went on the business. Did you think it was KJ or it was Madison?
I'm trying to remember. When I saw the play, I was like, boy, he's wide open. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of like, what's Madison doing out there? And I was thinking initially it was like, okay, he came out of the backfield, but then you watch the replay. No, it's empty. He split out wide. And
right.
I think the first quarter of that game was, I didn't see a lot of it live because there were so many things going on. Oh, this guy's hurt. We got to write something for the website, all this kind of stuff. And obviously that's still hauling the game at that point. But yeah, there was a lot to that. And Madison talked about it yesterday, just saying, because the corner sits there. It went to single high, so I think he's expecting I've got a one-on-one and he's going to carry me wherever I go. But he passes him off, and it's just wide open. It was. I think he was surprised that it was there too.
All right, now Nordo mentioned Maxey at the end of the press conference. You might have been the last question of the press conference about the quarterback had Dobbs. Well, that was you, right? Who asked if Dobbs had gone down, who would the quarterback have been?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, Cam Akers, green dot bit. All right, well, we got an Achilles. So then Kevin O'Connell, because I wasn't there, I was listening.
Yeah.
Like, what was his facial expression like? Was he being covert or because he talked a little bit?
Yeah.
And then he was like, well, it probably would have been a wide receiver or a running back.
Yep.
When he said or a running back, knowing that Akers was down, well, I would bet
Chandler?
Brandon Powell.
Yeah.
Brandon Powell, who, granted, I mean, if you're worried about Jaron Hall at 6 feet playing quarterback, now you can do it with Brandon Powell at 5'8".
Yeah.
But I mean, he's going to be a little scat back there. But
you have to go Wildcat or something.
Right. He was a running back at Florida, a running back / quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
Jordan Addison, from what I hear, was a really good quarterback in high school. Ryan Wright was a ballyhooed quarterback in Northern California.
And in London.
And in London on his one pass to Jalen. But like Ryan was recruited by decent schools to play quarterback, and he's super tall. So if you were to bet the whole thing, I'd bet Brandon Powell. What about you?
Yeah, I think you'd probably have to go Wildcat there. I mean, it's just somebody that you would trust to handle the ball and take the snap. I thought about Ryan Wright a little bit. I'm not going to lie, because he has thrown it and we've seen it.
Looks good.
Yeah, I mean it's.
What if you put Ryan on a run pass option?
Oh gosh,
never see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose just get out of the way. If
I think tush push is definitely
that'd be automatic
with the plus size punter.
That would be automatic with Ryan Wright. I think if they want to get the tush push to work, making Ryan Wright your designated tush push quarterback could be worth looking at. I hope KOC is listening to this. Hey, the ideas are free. Next time you have news, you want to just text it to me. We'll call it even. We'll be good.
All right, heating and cooling. Danielle Hunter of late is boiler room hot.
Yep,
and that's pretty cool. So what are you liking about Danielle's game?
Well, it's been a number of things. I mean, certainly the pass rush has been what we've expected to see, and he's back in that role where he's not dropping into coverage a certain percentage of the time. It's basically, you kind of know what he's going to be doing, and Brian Flores has said, let's let you do this. But he's also, I think, done it against the run. He had a couple plays yesterday. I think Andrew Kramer highlighted this for his film review. He basically bench presses Jonnu Smith on the way to a run stop, that you are reminded the type of run defender he is, whether it's the hustle, whether it's the physicality, just the willingness to jump in for those things has always been part of his game. And I think they have found a role for him in the 3-4 that maximizes a lot of what he did really well as a defensive end in the 4-3. Mm-hmm. And it's been a good fit. And I'm curious to see where that goes, because does he look at this differently now and say, hey, I've got a good thing here with Brian Flores, if Brian Flores is in fact still here, if he doesn't get poached for a head coaching job somewhere. Does that change his thought
You
process?
think about that a little bit. I haven't really this season until of late, where I'm like, well, I mean, it's like I don't know what potentially could be open. I wrote it down for yesterday, but I didn't get to it. What would be like the A topic there? You would think of Las Vegas Raiders, maybe? No,
for Hunter,
for Flores.
For Flores,
like Flores. Like I'm thinking about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the one I wonder.
There are so many players on this defense who never have played better in their.
Yes,
Harrison
it's been
Phillips,
really impressive.
Well, DJ Wanham he's never played this physically.
Right,
down after down.
Yep.
Patrick Jones is doing so many good things. There's like designated assist guys in this defense.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Patrick. I mean, we're probably not going to get that 6-sack bonus or whatever. But you know what? We're going to win a lot of games here by you doing A, B, C, and D to help the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
Harrison Phillips has never played better in his career.
Right. Yeah. So as far as where this goes with Flores, I think the one I wonder about is if, and there could be a lot of people in line for this job if it were to happen, but
Dallas?
the Patriots.
Oh, hey.
Because if Belichick were to go, Flores raised his family there, was there for a long time. I could see that being a spot where if they call, the relationships you have there with Robert Kraft and the organization, that could be hard to say no. I don't get the sense that he's going to just jump at anything.
If Jerry Jones wants him to handle Michael Parsons, he'll give him $11 million to do it.
That may do it. I think it would have to be the right situation. I don't think he's just going to say, okay, I want to be a head coach so badly that I'm going to go take anything I can get. I think he's been happy with things here to the point where he can be a little bit picky. I'm not saying he's going to say no to everything because he wants to be a defensive coordinator for the rest of his career. I don't know the situation well enough to know that, but I have talked to enough people about it to think that he is going to be selective. I certainly think he's going to have interest. The question, I think, is going to be, does the right thing come through to the point where he says, this is my second opportunity to be a head coach.
Yep.
Fair or not, I'm in number 2, and I probably am not going to get number 3. That you don't see coaches get a third shot at it. So I would imagine he's going to be very picky instead of very high standard about this has to be exactly right or I'm not going.
Thanks for the time, my brother. And we will hear you Friday with Bumper to Bumper and Barrero. And once again, we thank Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for Tuesday sponsorship of Ben Goessling joining 9 to noon. And you can learn more at standardheating.com. Have a good day.
You too, man.
News due Nord around the corner. Then about 15, 17 minutes from now, Chris Finch, head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, joins 9 to noon.
Time now for the Vikings Report. Presented by the Minnesota Lottery. Play the new Vikings scratch game for a chance to win up to $100,000. Vikings assistant coach Mike Pettin joins PA after
Minnesota Lottery. I'm in.
Good to be home. Sunday against the New Orleans Saints at U.S. Bank Stadium. Player I call Taysom the Trick. Sometimes I think he's not a football player. He's like a trick in a Boo-Ray game. Taysom Hill. How are they using Taysom the Trick these days?
As usual, in a variety of ways. He's the old cliched, Swiss Army knife of their offense. He can play tight end at a high level, and then he's a dual threat at quarterback. I mean, he's more than functional as a passer, even though they hasn't used him that much that way. And then he just has natural ability as a downhill runner, and it causes a lot of stress for a defense. I mean, you have to prepare first for their conventional offense with Derek Carr, and then all those wildcat-type variations that you can get with Taysom, and it really just, you can do a good job defending it, but it really waters down your preparation time. It's like body punches. You have to waste a lot of time in your walkthroughs, in your meeting time, to account for all that stuff, and they might only run it 3 or 4 times in a game. They might run it 10 or 12 times. So it's something that I don't think a lot of people realize, how much.
Yay on the Fan.
News to Nord brought to you by The Casino at CanterburyPark.com. Learn more about all the events going on, but it's poker, blackjack, table games. Tuesday night, is it a Tuesday? Well, there's going to be bingo.
BINGOMOUSE. Hey, the mouse.
And you can go to CanterburyPark.com to learn about The Casino at Canterbury Park. We are your home for Vikings football. We're your home for Minnesota Wild hockey, and we're Go for Sports as well. But how about being home for the Howl and home for Anthony Edwards?
Now with it on the right side, switched on to Horford. Looking to create a shot, pulls the trigger from 18. Jumper's good.
That was an OT. How about more from Alan Horton?
Still a minute 45 to go here in overtime. 110-105. It's a 5-point advantage. Ant drifts off the Anderson screen. Ant looking to drive, spins in the lane, top ball away with one hit. He threw it up. He threw it in. Ant's unstoppable. 38 points. Timberwolves lead by 7.
Target Center on fire as the Wolves beat the previously undefeated Boston Celtics last night, PA, and Anthony Edwards certainly on the marquee for a reason. 38 points, you heard it there. 9 rebounds, 7 dimes as well. Rudy Gobert, by the way, off to an awesome start this season, specifically defensively at a 14-12 game last night. Naz Reid consistently outplaying Cat basically every night. Cat was awful from the floor. I believe he fouled out. And the whole thing sucks right now with Big Kitty. So maybe his name could come up at some point in terms of just how things need to continue to get better for him. And we have the head coach on next segment. So he'll talk about all the good, bad, and ugly of what transpired last night and moving forward with the Howl. But one hell of a game for the home team last night as they beat Jason Tatum, shutting him down, not the entirety of the game, but in big spots. That's where defense comes to win games, in big spots. Anthony Edwards on 5 fouls had this great 1v1 shutdown of Tatum last night.
Yeah.
It was a cool victory for the Wolves.
Wow, I remember the moment. Did not realize he had 5 fouls in that moment. Jaden McDaniels did as good a work in situations against Jason Tatum as I've seen a player do against Tatum. I mean, Tatum is the highest of high end.
He's awesome.
Yeah, it's a league where people focus on LeBron and Anthony Davis and baby Steph and KD with the Phoenix Suns and Joker, and they're the champions, and Embiid, and rightfully so, they're fantastic players. I mean, Jason Tatum is a dog. Yeah. He's just a scrappy, off the dribble, gets to the line, backs up for 3. McDaniels forced him into shots he did not want to take. Now, when a Chris Finch, coach of the Wolves, joins around the corner probably 10 minutes from now, I'm going to share with him something the head coach of the Celtics said after the game, but I'm just going to paraphrase it when talking about defense. Where he, what's that coach's name? Mazzulla or
Mazzulla?
Yeah, Mazzulla.
Is it Joe Mazzulla?
Is he the cat that sprinted down to the free throw line, extended in front of Finch, and the idiot ref looked at him and didn't have the guts to give him a tee?
I believe that's him.
Same coach, right?
Yes,
right.
Indeed.
After the game, he said the Timberwolves' defensive toughness outmatched the Boston Celtics' offensive toughness. Whew. Well, this is the highest scoring team in the league, I think, on the Celtics. I mean, they're going great guns out there with Porzingis, by the way. I don't watch Porzingis play a lot. I mean, we know who he is. We're LFL raised. Yeah. We know he's a stretch big who blocks shots. But I've never really watched him for a full game. He's a cool player.
He is.
Yeah, Kristaps Porzingis, sometimes defense outside of pretending he's not paying attention, so he can take 2 steps and swat it into the 5th row, which he likes to do a lot. He's just a cool cat.
I think in some ways he's been hiding down in Dallas. And
then he was in Washington.
Maybe the same problem. Correct, yes, with the Wizards as well. But
he's like, really? You're going to play this Gafford guy over me? Are you out of your mind?
The same problem. There's a lot of NBA fans that'll look at Anthony Edwards' box scores all year round, but he only plays 5-6 primetime games a year. Right. So it's like, look at this. And then he shows up in the Denver series, and he continues to ascend, his star getting brighter.
Porzingis made the opening tap. And I know you watched the second half or later in the game, so you probably didn't see this. He made the opening tap a bit. All right? So it's Porzingis and Stifle. I mean, Kristaps is looking at the refs, and the players are all laughing, and he's kind of like, really? So he jumped too early purposely. All right, well, we got to do it again. He did it again, and he's laughing. Stifle's smiling. The players are like, oh, I love that one. So then they finally got the jump ball off, and Kristaps Porzingis jumped too early purposely, stole the tap, and then the refs were like, come on, that's enough. They gave the ball to the Wolves to start the game. So he has bit to him. Kristaps Porzingis, who knew?
I love that. There's such a I heard them talking about it on the Power Trip, and I didn't realize it, but they're totally right. Tatum, Brown, Porzingis make the move for him. They got Jrue Holiday now as well.
Yeah.
The bench is just a wasteland
it's terrible.
of who?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the Hauser bit. Now, Pritchard can play.
Pritchard's cool in spots,
If
yeah.
you sleep on, he's one of those bits where if you sleep on him, I mean, he can shoot lights out. But like the Hauser bit, Horford's supposed to be on the bench. One of Feng Shui's guys, Derek White, who
he's not playing right now, personal reasons or something like that.
Missed 2 in a row. He was phenomenal in the postseason last year with the short time they were in it, and he was off to a good start this year. He's a swing kind of guy who can play small forward and guard, and they missed him last night because Horford had to play too many minutes.
You've always been a big Zvi Mikhailiuk fan, right? Remember him with the Pistons?
Yeah, and the Raptors maybe
the Raptors.
Yeah.
Moving on to Monday Night Football. Here's a highlight.
Herbert in the shotgun, Eckler to his right. Hand off to Eckler. Eckler into the end zone. Touchdown, Chargers. Eckler, second of the game. Assist to Khalil Mack and Alohi Gilman.
Matt Money Smith, that is Chargers radio. 27-6 is the final. They get to 4-4. The Chargers do. Jets fall to 4-4. Zach Wilson's just embarrassing. Awful throws last night. His teammates let him down with bad drops. There's zero feel in the pocket. There's no fight, zero confidence to throw it downfield. His decision-making is terrible in who he targets. It's so unbelievably bad. And in the end, down 21 points, he wants to hit maybe Garrett Wilson. Let's make something happen to feel good about ourselves. No, he targets Michael Carter out of the backfield for catches of 6, 7, 3, 5, and 4.
Wow.
And 1 for no gain.
He got that thing laid out.
And then Tyler Conklin. Well, I was watching this last night. Tyler Conklin gets smacked at the goal line trying to score a pity touchdown at the buzzer, and he's held short of it. I mean, just between Daniel Jones, he tears his ACL in the Raiders game. Antonio Pierce is handing out cigars, smoking them in the locker room. Everyone's feeling good now that McDaniels is gone. But Daniel Jones out for the year with an ACL. You got the Achilles with Rodgers, and I had to watch Zach Wilson in primetime. I think they're in primetime again next week in one way or another. It's just so bad, and it's so awful. And meanwhile, I'm sweating Josh Dobbs, and he goes out, runs all over the place, and we're finding our way to 4 in a row for KO. The quarterback situation in the NFL, as we wrap up News to Nord, is weird.
And the quarterback would be the point guard of the offense, and the point guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves would be Mike Conley, and he plays for Chris Finch, the head coach. The Timberwolves are undefeated at home, and they beat the undefeated Boston Celtics last night in overtime. Let's chat about it with Finchy around the corner on KFAN.